I've managed to get these pieces of acetate close to the shape, but I've had to do some fine tuning with this sanding stick, and I think now I'm able to glue this one in. I didn't show a lot of what I was doing because it's just so labor intensive that for me to show it while I'm making it, it's just really inconvenient. But maybe I'll show it on the next RSO I build. But basically, you can see I've got to fit it within that recess that surrounds the window opening. I think that even needs a little bit more taken off that corner. This has been a real ordeal getting these done. I wish I could just be happy with the kit parts, but I don't know. They're just too thick for me. Anyway, so now I'm going to take some Tamiya extra thin cement and just touch along the edge. Hopefully I don't mar the plastic, the clear plastic. Hoi vey. Ah, well, I should have left it well enough alone, eh? Oh, well, maybe I can fix that.
As you can see in this reference photograph from Nuts and Bolts, I'm going to attempt a small bit of scratch building here. The image shows a set of jerry cans carried on the roof of the cab, secured within what appears to be a simple field-made retaining frame. The photograph is reasonably clear, but not clear enough to reveal every detail. So some of what I'm doing here is uneducated guesswork. My plan is to fabricate the frame using evergreen strip styrene, cutting and assembling it to approximate the proportions visible in the photo. I'll need to work out the dimensions as I go, since the reference doesn't provide exact measurements. One thing that isn't obvious from the photograph is how this structure was actually attached to the roof. It could have been bolted from underneath, or perhaps fastened through the roof panels in some improvised way. Because the frame itself appears to be made of wood, welding seems unlikely. In the absence of clear evidence, I'm not going to get too hung up on the mounting method. For now, the goal is simply to reproduce the small retaining frame that keeps the jerry cans in place, essentially a simple field expedient rack that soldiers would have put together to secure extra fuel on the vehicle. In this sequence, I'm using ordinary post-it notes as masking material for the front glazing of the vehicle. The light adhesive on the back of the paper is actually quite useful for this purpose. It's tacky enough to hold the mask in place while painting, but gentle enough it won't pull out the windows or leave a residue when I remove them. By cutting the post-it notes to shape, I can create quick, clean masks that protect the clear parts while I spray the surrounding areas. It's a simple and effective little trick without resorting to a more sticky tape or specialized masking products. The Raupenschlepper OST, depicted in this build, carries a camouflage pattern typical of German vehicles operating during the summer of 1943 on the Eastern Front. Earlier in the war, German vehicles had been painted in a dark gray finish, known as Dunkelgrau, RAL 7021. This color had been adopted before the war and worked reasonably well in urban and forested environments of Western Europe. But conditions on the Eastern Front were very different. The vast open landscapes of southern Russia and Ukraine were dominated by wheat fields, dust, and pale earth tones. Dark gray vehicles stood out sharply against this terrain, making them easy targets for the Soviet artillery and aircraft. In response, the German army introduced a new base color in early 1943, Dunkelgelb RAL 7028, or dark yellow. This sand-colored finish was designed to blend better with the dusty landscape of the Eastern Front. Factories began delivering vehicles in this new color, but frontline crews were responsible for applying additional camouflage themselves. Paint was usually issued in concentrated paste form. Soldiers diluted it with whatever was available, fuel, oil, or water, and then applied it using spray guns, brushes, rags, or sometimes even brooms. The result was an extraordinary variety of camouflage patterns. The wavy green pattern seen on this RSO is characteristic of a type often applied during the build-up to Operation Citadel, the German offensive that opened the Battle of Kursk in July 1943. In this case, the base coat of Dunkelgelb was overlaid with irregular stripes of olive grün, RAL 6003, a dark olive green intended to break up the vehicle's outline against vegetation and farmland. The pattern itself was rarely precise. Camouflage was often applied quickly in field workshops or motor pools as units prepared for operations. Crews worked with limited equipment and under considerable pressure to get vehicles ready for combat. Because of this, no two vehicles were exactly alike. The Raupenschlepper OST, assigned to the Panzerjägerabteilung 49 of the 4th Panzer Division, would likely have received its camouflage shortly before the launch of Operation Citadel. In the weeks leading up to the offensive, German units concentrated along the front line, preparing equipment and vehicles for the largest armored battle of the war. Mechanics repaired worn machines, crews loaded ammunition, and vehicles were repainted to better match the summer terrain. For vehicles like the RSO, camouflage served an important purpose. Unlike tanks, which relied on armor for protection, the RSO was essentially an unarmored tractor. It hauled anti-tank guns, ammunition, and supplies for units like Panzerjäger Abteilung 49, whose primary weapon was the powerful 7.5 centimeter Pak-40. Operating close to the front lines, these tractors were vulnerable to artillery fragments, aircraft strafing, and enemy observation. Camouflage helped reduce that risk by breaking up the vehicle's silhouettes when seen from a distance. The wavy green stripes seen on this particular scheme were especially effective in the agricultural landscapes around Kursk, where tall grasses and cultivated fields created natural patterns of color and shadow. As the summer campaign progressed, vehicles like the RSO quickly accumulated the marks of hard service. Dust from the dry Russian steppe coated every surface. Rain turned dirt roads into mud. Sunlight faded paint, and constant loading and unloading wore away the finish along the cargo bed. The camouflage that had once been freshly applied in preparation for battle soon became weathered, chipped, and stained. These marks of wear told the story of a machine that was constantly behind the front lines, hauling anti-tank guns into position, bringing ammunition forward, and supporting the soldiers fighting in one of the most intense battles of the Second World War. The Raupenschlepper OST was never meant to be a glamorous vehicle, but its distinctive camouflage, applied hastily by crews preparing for the summer offensive of 1943, when the German forces believed that the coming Battle of Kursk might turn the tide of the war. Instead, it would become a turning point in the opposite direction, and vehicles like this RSO would continue their quiet, essential work, keeping the guns supplied and the army moving across the vast battlefields of the Eastern Front.
Alright guys, just as an exercise, this is the color call out I'm going to use. So what I've done, I've decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep everything separate. I'm going to paint this door and the other door, and then I'll match the rest of it with this. But as an exercise, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I would make a mask. So first off, I have to scan this, and I've got to match it to this size. So I have to take a measurement of the actual piece, the measurement here, and then I have to figure out the difference, how much reduction I need to make. So you save a copy. Now you open that in the Silhouette software. And then you go from there. Okay, so then you take it into the Silhouette. You take the scan into the Silhouette Studio. And I'm going to trace everything, and then I'm going to reduce it over here to 68% of what it should be. Okay, there's the pattern. I've drawn it out. That didn't work out so great.
yeah, recipe, world famous. No, it's legal. What can I say? Well, it's not. Or maybe Canadians are just.
All right, so we're gonna do the decals now. Not too many on here. Oh, they were red after all. That's funny. I thought it would be clear. Anyway, got that one, this one, this one, this one, that one, and that one. I'm gonna use these really nice scissors. That one, that one, that one. So they've grouped them pretty good. All right, I'm just gonna save time and drop them all in there. What I usually do is just hit them in the water and then let them soak outside of it.
somehow, some way, when they get in there, get results like this, want to try to change, try to insist that there's something wrong with the machine. How often it needs to be recalibrated, right? He said it's...
I'm using this instead of getting out the oil paints because it's just as good for what I'm doing here. Doing like sort of, I guess, not a pin wash, but just a wash to get some of the details. But I don't want it really too dark, so I'm putting it on and then I'm using some thinner to make it look right. Bottom line. So having just a little bit of paint thinner in here, I'm going around and I'm removing excess. Well, it happened. I had these covered with a mask, and when I took the tape off, it ripped the glass out, which is fine. Not a big deal. I'll just make some separate ones. And actually, you know what? It's more useful to me this way. I shouldn't have put them in, but sometimes I get in a rush. So I'll just paint this rim, the rubber seal, black. I'll put some new glass in. Okay, I painted out the rubber.
All right, everybody, we're going to wrap this video up here, and be sure to join us for the next one here on Jet Scale Models. So in the meantime and in between time, that's another edition of Jet Scale Models. Y'all come back now, you hear?
ขาดเนี่ยเรามันอย่าขาดขึ้นขาดแล้วมันมีตัวสิลุยเลยว่า